Hi, welcome to Yellow Chair Chats. I'm your host, Mary Hewitt of Unlocking Childhood. In these quick segments, I'll be sharing big ideas about all things children and childhood. So pull up a seat, settle in, and let's go. Today, we're going to talk about supporting children in navigating big, overwhelming emotions. Let me begin by saying that just like every other developmental domain, physical development, cognitive development, language development, the emotional and social domain of children's development is also a set of skills to be gradually acquired and refined with time, proper support, and experience. And yet, on some level, there's this belief in our culture that children should be emotionally regulated, all on their own and almost instantly. So where does this belief come from? I wonder sometimes if it arose from a mix-up in the difference between compliance and emotional regulation. On the surface, when a child simply complies without being supported through their big emotions, it can appear that they're emotionally regulated, which leads us to believe that emotional regulation is just that simple and easy for children to achieve. But the truth is, compliance is just about the furthest thing from calm, cool, and collected. It's also really dangerous when a child is overly compliant. Why? Because when a child lives in a state of compliance, perhaps because of fear, threats, or just to fit in, their emotional world remains largely hidden. This means the caregivers in their life will have a lot of difficulty supporting them in developing their social and emotional skills because they just never come to the surface. Over time, as children continue to hide their emotions, they develop deep shame as well. On some level, when we encourage children to simply comply, we reinforce this idea that emotions and feelings aren't welcome or okay. And yet they continue to feel them, of course. So in the end, they develop this idea that there's something wrong with them as individuals. So, we know that emotional regulation is a skill, just like learning to swim or mastering the ability to read with fluency. And children need emotionally attuned and mature caregivers to help them navigate the ups and downs of these big feelings and develop the necessary skills to become emotionally responsive to themselves and to others. And so, how do we become the emotional compasses children need and deserve in the early years? The truth is, it starts within us. In other words, how you show up for yourself emotionally is exactly how you will show up for children in your care when they face big emotions. When you feel angry, how do you respond? Do you shove it aside or push it down? When you feel sad, do you keep yourself busy and distracted? When you're afraid, do you find yourself keeping your life really small so as to avoid fear? When we navigate our own emotional world in these ways, it means we're operating with a core belief system that we can't navigate big emotions or that emotions just don't belong. And of course, this comes up in our practice as well. We can't run from our core beliefs. They will always find a way to the surface. A famous quote by the world-renowned Dr. Gabor Mate states, "It's not about feeling better, it's about getting better at feeling." So how do we get better at feeling? How do we polish up our own emotional compass, show up for our own emotions, which as a result allows us to more fully show up for the children's emotions as well? In short, by feeling our feelings. This sounds easy and straightforward, but if it was, we'd be doing it all the time. It's not easy to do, but it is simple to understand. So let's talk about it. Big feelings are overwhelming, but if we can learn to meet up with them instead of avoiding them, our compass will become a fine-tuned mechanism. So let's go over some strategies to get us there. First, I love using this question when big emotions arise. Why is it okay that I feel this way? This moves me from a place of overwhelm to a place of curiosity, which brings down the intensity almost instantly. You'd think it would aggravate emotions to further justify them, but actually the opposite is true. When we try to push them away, emotions come back bigger and stronger. Yet when we can meet them with kindness and curiosity, they get lighter. Let me illustrate this with an example. You're driving on a busy highway and someone cuts you off. Right away, you feel angry at the other driver. Instead of just ignoring or pushing back on these feelings, we can ask ourselves internally, why is it okay that I feel this way? Now you're in a place of curiosity, not reactivity. Next, we can begin to brainstorm. Well, I'm angry because I could have been in an accident. My life flashed before my eyes. I became hyper-aroused as I swerved, and so on. This brings us from a place of overwhelm to a much steadier, emotionally attuned place. It also releases any shame we might feel about the big emotion itself. Now, in this steadier state of mind with zero shame, we can perhaps try taking 3 slow, deep breaths, or employ any number of strategies that might work for us in meeting up with our emotions further. Over time, if we can continually get better at feeling instead of rushing to feel better, which inevitably makes us feel worse, we will shift the core belief that we can't navigate big emotions to, my emotions belong and I can support myself through it. Emotions need not overcome me. You see, when we've practiced holding space for our feelings time and time again, our emotional capacity and skill set will get stretched. This fundamental shift now brings us into emotional situations with children from a completely different stance. We've proven to ourselves that we can navigate big emotions. So when children have them too, we now have developed the internal compass to offer them as well. So, what might it look like to offer up this emotional navigation system to children? We understand how to meet up with our own emotions, but how do we instill these approaches into children in a child-friendly way so they can learn the necessary social and emotional skills to support their development? And so we can create a generation of children who see the value and importance of feeling their feelings instead of avoiding, distracting, stuffing down, or numbing those feelings. I've broken it down into a few steps. First, when a child has a big emotion, we want to remind them that we see their distress and restate the situation back to them. Second, we want to help them identify the emotion and help them release any shame they might have surrounding that overwhelming emotion. Finally, we want to remind them that they have our unconditional support through it all. And, if needed, we can then also implement some strategies to continue to help them regulate further. Let's illustrate this with an example. Let's imagine 4-year-old Ruby really wanted to go with her big sister on a class trip. She doesn't understand why she can't go, and her sister has been enthusiastic all week about it in front of Ruby. Now, Ruby is in tears as her sister heads out on her trip. Here's how we can help Ruby navigate her emotional world in this moment. In a warm, calm tone, we might meet her at her level and say, I know you really wanted to go on that trip with your big sister. When I can't go somewhere I really wanted to go, I get sad and frustrated too. We will get through this together and I am here for you. In these few sentences, we've mirrored the situation back to them, helped them release the shame and identify the emotion, and reminded them that they're not alone and we are here to support them through it. Now, if the child is still dysregulated, we can implement some strategies we think might work for them based on their personality, guiding them through deep breathing, helping them root in their senses by having a drink of water, moving their bodies through play, going out into nature and leaving the confines of a small space, and so on. This is how we can help children build the skills necessary to nurture their emotional development. This is how we can offer our emotional compass and over time help them construct their own as well. This is how we get better at feeling. As a final note, I like to imagine big emotions as the spiky ball that when they emerge bounces around inside of us, pricking and irritating us until we become completely overwhelmed. The more we try to fight it or ignore it, the spikier it gets. But when we can instead notice and nurture these emotions, the ball sort of smooths out. It stops disturbing us and consuming our time, energy, and attention in a whole lot of ways. You know what? I'm really sad this episode is over. Thanks for coming to Yellow Chair Chats. See you next time.